Good morning, everyone. There were a couple of questions which I had printed out, which had come in. But then one came 2 days ago, which I have picked for this morning. And we'll explore that, and then you're welcome to share your questions or your thoughts. This is a question on happiness, which is what this whole teaching is about, or rather, true happiness. It's an oft repeated word or feeling coming as the end result of the teaching, starting with non-doership, leading to non-expectation, to non-entitlement, to non-attachment to outcome, to total surrender. Well said. Finally, settling into peace of mind. This dissolves guilt and shame in oneself and blame and malice towards the other. Life then lives itself out with genes and up-to-date conditioning without suffering, psychological suffering. Apparently, the final arrival should be that of happiness. But here, the still somewhat active thinking mind steps in. What exactly is this happiness? My genetic bias still makes me impatient with pettiness and cruelty, with satisfaction at using mild expletives, asshole being one such favorite. Life continues without any bubbling or opening up or sheer bliss doing the rounds. So where's that happiness? Where is that happiness? You see, that is the whole point. Happiness, or rather true happiness, is not a thing. It is not an object that one can possess. Happiness, which depends on a pleasure, is something one can get attached to. It is something that one can get attached to. But true happiness is the absence of content. It is the absence of a thing called happiness, which can go when that thing goes, you see. So the ego is always conditioned to look for something and is therefore now looking for true happiness. It has understood the teaching. The teaching is being lived, and yet the ego feels, where is that true happiness? That is the ego still operating, wanting something that it can label as true happiness. True happiness is a way of being. It's a very important question that has been asked. You cannot know true happiness in that sense. You can only be it. The peace that passeth understanding. That is true happiness. And if there is no blame and condemnation, hatred and malice, guilt and shame, and so on, one has already arrived at the destination. Why? Because one never left it. The layers which covered the vision, the view, have been removed. That is what the teaching does. That is the function of any teaching, to remove the darkness, that is the illusion, the Maya. It does not place another object before one. It shines a light on what is, a light on being. So this ego can never find true happiness as an item, as a possession, as an object. Because that is subject to the laws of time. You can even lose it if you have it. That is not the happiness we are talking about. The Buddha used the word Sukha Shanti. Sukh, Shanti. Happiness through peace. A deep, deep peace with what is, with your life, exactly the way it has played out, knowing it was destined to be this way. Doing whatever one thinks and one feels one should do in the circumstances, knowing that the results are not in one's control. That is true happiness. Knowing that whatever I do in a given situation is based on factors beyond my control. Knowing that is true happiness. Because when you know it, you live it. Or rather, it is lived through you. That is why the sage is a content man. True happiness is the absence of the ego that is constantly searching for a thing called happiness. When that search drops, that is true happiness. And when that search drops, that is the end of the ego with its sense of doership. That is true happiness. It is the end of the seeking. It is a way of being. There is the famous story of the Buddha who had his 5 closest disciples. And they went through all their practices together, the spiritual practices, the sadhanas, sometimes torturous. And the Buddha realized this is not really working. So he went to them and he said, look, there is no point in going on torturing our bodies like this. I think there's another way. Let's stop all this and let's go and discover that other way. And they ridiculed him. They said, you've given up, chickened out. And they looked down upon him. And they refused to follow him, and he left. And then he pursued Sukha Shanti, his exploration, his way. And he reached the highest state. And then he thought, I must go back and tell these friends what I have seen and felt. And he went back to them. They were sitting on some small hillock talking to each other. He was walking towards them. Initially, they didn't see this man walking towards them. And by, something changed. They became quiet. Their minds calmed down. They stopped talking to each other. And they looked around. What's happening? And they saw this man approaching them, whom they could not recognize. And they felt this pull, this beautiful magnetic force. And they got up and could not help walking towards this man. And as they came closer and closer and closer, they realized that this was Gautama. And they were shocked. And they fell at his feet. And they asked him, what is this? What is this force which we are so attracted to? We didn't even recognize you. We were just pulled by the vibration. And the Buddha said, that is what I wanted to share with you. And now, even words are not required. That is true happiness. A way of being. A happiness that does not depend on outcomes. Now let's explore this use of expletives. My genetic bias still makes me impatient with pettiness and cruelty, with satisfaction at using mild expletives. Asshole being one of my favorite. This is very fascinating. You see, words are vibrations. They are words in the most ancient of language, Sanskrit, which don't make sense. But the way they are pronounced is a vibration. Words are vibrations. Now, supposing you called someone an asshole, and that person didn't know what an asshole is. Let's say his memory was wiped out or whatever. Would he be offended? Two, it is just a word. We have given meaning to that word and overlaid it with negativity. Otherwise, it is a body part. With that understanding, would there be any offense taken? In fact, it's a very important body part because without it, you will die in a few days, you see. It is the intent behind the word and the sense of doership behind it. When you call someone something, what have you given to that vibration? With what intent are you saying it? Have you loaded all your guns with bullets of doership which you're shooting at the other person and calling him a name or her a name because of something they did to you? That has to be explored. The word itself is meaningless. So, it could be that one is using foul language for years as part of one's conditioning. And one continues using the same language. But has the intent changed? What is attached to that word? Do you still just say it and then laugh at yourself or at the absurdity of the situation? Or do you still feel that it is directed at an individual who did something to you which you did not like? That has to be explored. India is famous for having masters who used foul language, who abused. There is no question of morality here and what is right and what is wrong and what should one say and what should not one say. It is irrelevant. But what is hiding behind those words? That reveals all. What is the motive? You see, picture yourself on the battlefield leading an army of 5,000. And you have to give the command to attack. And you rouse up the army, you give a fantastic speech, like you see in the movies and all that. And then you have to say the word attack loud so that almost everyone can hear it, charged, so all your soldiers feel charged and you're going into battle. You can picture it right now in your minds. Now, supposing you have the same army, you are leading the same army, and you just say, okay, folks, I think we should attack now. Is it going to have any force? No. What is the force behind the word? What is the Shakti behind the word? What is the intent behind the word? What is the sense of doership behind the word? Words carry weight. Words carry actual weight. When they emanate from the mouth, they have a weight to them. That weight is the weight the word is infused with. Life continues without any bubbling or opening up or sheer bliss doing the rounds. Thank God for that. Because if there was an opening up, it could close. If there was sheer bliss, that could go. Therefore, it is a deep, deep peace of mind, unshakable, like the bottom of the ocean. Basically, life takes on a different flavor where one is no longer rattled by the events that come one's way. The lesser the news, the better it is. And what arises more and more, in fact, Rameshji would give certain pointers to know whether the teaching has deepened. One, a sense of tolerance for the other. Not tolerance in terms of bearing up with someone's behavior, but a tolerance in knowing that everyone is designed the way they have been by the same source. So that is the tolerance of acceptance. Two, generosity. You become more and more generous, not only in terms of money, in terms of your time, in terms of your feelings towards others, because the sense of separation now is thinning. Because then being generous to others is being generous to oneself. That starts happening. And 3, compassion. Compassion starts arising more and more. Not a love that can turn to hate at any point in time. Compassion, again the word associated with the Buddha. One becomes compassionate, one realizes how people are suffering because one has been through all those aspects. One, in various levels, one has seen it for oneself. Compassion starts arising more and more. There is again the story or the myth or the legend, whatever you call it. When Buddha reached the gates of heaven, and the man at the gate said, "We have been waiting and waiting and waiting for you to walk through. All of us have come here to invite you in to the kingdom of heaven. It is a great day for us, the greatest of greatest for 1 millennium, to have you walking through the gate." But the Buddha stopped. He did not enter. So the gatekeeper said, "Please do come in. You can't imagine how happy we are, how joy-filled we are, how ecstatic we are to have one as you come here." Buddha said, "No. Unless those behind me have entered, I won't." Compassion. All right. So I'll now take questions. Please ensure you have your videos on because of security reasons. We will not be taking questions from anyone who does not have their video on. Yes, is that Umayal? Have I pronounced your name correctly? I can't hear you. Just hold on, please. Just hold on. Can you speak now?
Can you hear me now?
You're very faint.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I'm sorry, but you're very faint. I can't hear you.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we'll move on to someone else and get back to you.
Okay.
And if Divya or Sangeeta can just check out what's happening, please.
Namaste, Gautam sir.
Namaste, Kumar. Good morning.
Good morning. I had a doubt. Like whatever you teach is so life transforming, and it has been the experience of the sages of the past. Then why does the teaching been referred to as a concept? If it's the truth, then why do we use the word concept for the teaching?
Yes, Kumar, because all teachings point the way. You see, all teachings are concepts. And why are they concepts? In fact, my teacher was always asked the question you have asked, is because some people may accept it and others may not. Someone will say, I don't accept this whole concept of non doership. I am not agreeing with it. The truth is that which no one can deny. That is the truth. There are so many teachings, there are so many paths. You may agree with some, you may not agree with others. So they are not the truth. They are showing the way to the truth. Now, what is the truth? The truth is that which nobody can deny. And by that measure, the only truth ever is the impersonal awareness of being. I am. You take anyone on the planet, any human being, and you wipe out their memory, they will still know that they exist. That is everyone's experience. I am. I exist. Not I am Kuvar or I am Gautam. That is a concept. Because I may meet you on the road and you say, I am Kuvar. And I said, really? How do I know? You're saying that's your name. Are you sure? I don't believe you. So the name is the concept, the given name. But the I am is the truth. So all teachings are concepts. And it also points to a very important aspect that what the teaching is saying is don't get hooked to the teaching because it is a concept. Because the cliche which goes, the finger pointing to the moon is not the moon. Don't get stuck just with the finger. Look at the moon, which means what? Living the teaching. The teaching delivers to you the peace of I am. You see, that is the difference. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. That's very helpful. And just a little thing here. Another problem I was having is self-restraint a form of ego? Because earlier, like I was very, trying to be restrained to eat less, maybe not indulge in desserts or being very self-disciplined, having a routine. But that was quite forced. So since being introduced to this teaching, there is more being natural and not being too, forced and restrained. But is that a form of ego coming from the back door when we try to restrain, or what is it? Would want to
Sure.
understand that.
See, of course, it is a sense of doership. To exercise restraint is a sense of doership. Now, the question is should one do that or not? Supposing you have a fondness for desserts, and supposing you have diabetes or you are overweight, for example, Now, the mind will reach the logical conclusion that to protect my health, I must have less sugar. So, restraint has to be exercised if the logic is followed. Now, whether or not you are able to restrain yourself is God's will. You see, so the common mistake we make with this teaching is that it's time to have a party in life, because any form of doership is doership and it has to be rejected. No, we have to be sensible. We have to ask questions like you have asked about self restraint to understand what is this about? Is there doership involved? Of course there is. Why? It is an inbuilt mechanism. My understanding now that if I don't exercise some restraint, I could damage my health. Now, some people will be able to avoid sugar, some may not be able to avoid it. They may be hooked to sugar, and it is detrimental to their health, you see. That is the play of God's will in action. But for you, this teaching is not going to say exercise self restraint, do not exercise self restraint. It's just throwing light on the subject of self restraint. And that is why, as I mentioned in the previous talk, on the middle way, not being extreme. You see, it's very important to understand this, because to be extreme is to be attached to a point of view. And I think Osho gave this example of one of his disciples who was a chain smoker. And he said he had been battling with smoking for decades and was not successful in stopping this habit. And Osho told him that that's the whole problem. You are an extremist. Because from one extreme, you want to go to the other extreme. First, have you accepted that you are a smoker? Have you accepted totally that you are a chain smoker? So, and then Osho took him through a process. But you see, this is the point. For us, life is a battle between two polaric opposites. We just swing from one extreme to the other. We take positions. So, is self-restraint required? For some people, it's helpful. For others, it's not helpful. There are different degrees. It's all very subjective. So, to come back to the main point, the teaching will never say what is right and what is wrong, what is good and what is bad, because that is again the banks of the polaric opposites. It will just throw light on the issue at hand. So now, whatever the understanding is on this subject of self-restraint, as you have asked it, is yours. What happens with this understanding is not in your control. Okay?
This was very helpful. Thank you.
Okay. I really admire that bed of yours because I'm quite fond of these Kashmiri kind of artifacts. Yes, Nishanthi. Are you there? Nishanthi?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Hello, thank you for taking my question. This is very new to me, and I found you only a couple of weeks ago. I have been listening to Nisargadatta Maharaj and Ramana Maharshi's teachings for about 1.5 years. And I just wrote down the question I need to ask you because I find it is difficult to articulate in person. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. When I eventually started to understand Maharaj's teachings, it stayed in my mind, and then I was going through it all day, connecting to them in life, especially the body identification being the most important to break, that he was talking about, and also then some realizations started to occur, and then I could recall the teachings and the realizations, and I was hashing it over in my head, and it felt like it was clearly in my mind. The teachings was clearly in my mind. And then for a few days, it was very difficult few days. I was looking for some help because the mind was extremely active. Then I call it my Guru's grace. I came across your teachings and Ramesh's teachings, and I realized there was a big part missing, or I couldn't absorb that part into me before, until I listened to it, and then listened to it from you. Then it hit home, which is the non-doership. And once I heard that, a couple of days later, there was more understanding, more things going on. All of a sudden, now I feel empty inside, and my mind cannot retain anything that I read. I understand it for the moment, then it just goes away. It just doesn't stay inside. Just feel like I have amnesia to some degree. But I'm not worried about it either. I'm not concerned. I guess the reason I'm bringing this up with you, is this a normal thing? Or am I experiencing something that I don't know what I'm asking, actually. I'm sure you know what I'm asking. It's quite a nice feeling not to carry any burden of knowing anything. It just feels so light inside.
You see, that is the point, that it feels so light inside because it is the absence of the weight. It is the absence of the weight of knowledge. It is the absence of the weight of doership. And therefore, it feels like a vacuum of content no longer being there. The emptiness, as you said. And that does feel nice. So,
but the mind is asking, is this right? Is this right?
yes. And who knows that? Who knows that the mind is asking, is this right?
I also aware of that part too. Also aware of that part.
You see, what happens is, it is the beginning of a new way of being, which one is not familiar with in terms of the past. And it's not a question of having made progress or not making progress. It is a way of being which is
So you're supposed to be, or that your true nature, is that it?
You are not supposed to be it, you are it.
You are it, yes.
And that is being uncovered, or in your case, that has been uncovered. So to trust the process is what you can offer to what has happened. To trust it, to take you home. Quite beautiful.
Yes.
Isn't it?
Yes. I'm very thankful that I found your teachings also.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Yes, is that Harish?
Good morning, Gautam. How are you?
Morning, morning. You're not sitting in your car today.
I asked my office to give some time off.
Okay. Okay.
I think,
Sorry, Harish, I can't hear you clearly. Is it
just
because...
yeah, now?
Better. I think because you're perhaps now closer to the mic or something.
Yes. My question, I think,
Sorry, Harish, this is not working. So can I get back to you once you just sort this out, please?
yeah, one second.
Maybe you can test the mic first and just see what's happening. Yeah. Yes, Siddhant. Welcome back, Shabnam.
Thank you again. I think I'll reiterate what I just heard from my fellow traveler to say that she's so grateful to have found you, and just can't express that in gratitude and words. And I don't know, I mean, I actually express a lot of gratitude to this time, the times that we're going through.
Sure.
It's amazing time, actually, if you look at it in that sense. I really, really liked your, the question you took up today. It was really wonderful because, so that's exactly where I wanted to little elaboration firstly on the intent. The whole concept on the intent. I mean, I've been watchful, and the same thing that, the person asked about the anger and about the past, that baggage that we carry. Because the anger, again, it's a process. It's going to take time for it to become, whatever, softer and things like that. The more we hear, the more we try to implement in our life, I guess, or it's actually the awareness. The moment you become aware that, yes, the anger is arising, or questioning my intent, what is my intent behind it? So it is like a process, yes. And however, sometimes it's little difficult when you have triggers in your life, right? In your environment, like how much ever, let's say there's another person who's going on saying, the explicits that you spoke about, and all around you, you're just hearing that. And then sometimes there's a trigger. So, that is what firstly is, how does one be centered, despite all these things which are also happening around you?
You see, the first step, so to speak, Shabnam, is to acknowledge that the anger has actually nothing to do with the other person, because the anger is arising within you. It's very hard for many people to accept this first basic point, you see. And what spiritual teachings do is reveal this to you, that the other is irrelevant as far as anger is concerned. It appears that someone has pushed your button and made you angry, but that is only within you. So what happens is the focus shifts from the other people around who use expletives, because you have totally accepted that they are the way they have been made. But more importantly, they are not feeling the anger, you are. So that is the turning within. The exploration undergoes a paradigm shift, because now you know it is all about you, not about the other. Anger is arising within this body mind organism that happens to be mine. And then that anger is witnessed. So, this is an important step on the spiritual path to take, if it is one's destiny. because this is the game changer. This is the transformer, you see. Because now we know that everything is appearing within our own consciousness. Even the people we label as the ones making us angry, it is all within our own field of consciousness. So in that sense, we are the anger. We eliminate the people we hold responsible for the anger. And then we look at anger. We look at where is it coming from? A sense of control, that someone has actually said something which has made me angry. Why? Because I have a position which I am defending, and that's why I get angry. And that is the deeper exploration of feelings like anger. See, they have to be explored to get to the root. Where is it coming from? And you will realize in most cases, it is based on a false premise that someone said something I don't like. Someone said something and I accused them of being the doer. And all these false platforms on which anger is standing start crumbling down. That is what starts happening. Not trying to suppress the anger, not trying to control it, because that is the ego with its sense of doership coming back in. But witnessing the anger, seeing the anger, seeing it with objectivity. What is this force that comes up within me? And you will soon see how all that it is standing on is empty pedestals. This will become your own experience. And then, if and when anger arises, there is no involvement in the anger at all. It is merely witnessed as the arising of the movement of an energy labeled anger, and you will be surprised to see that it does not stretch in the duration of time anymore, and it does not harm others, and more importantly, it does not harm yourself. So the quality changes, you see.
Yeah, so one has to be in the awareness all the time.
It has to happen.
Has to happen. Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Siddhant, you have any questions, or is that okay?
That's it. I was just here to listen, actually.
Okay. Yes, Jaren.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
You know, I've been living in China for quite some time. Obviously, I'm not Chinese, I'm Dutch.
Oh.
And for the past 5 years, I've been quite heavily immersed in Tai Chi. So what it does, it gives you an awareness of energy. It's something people are not normally aware of. Perhaps when they're angry, they feel that they're angry, but not really the energy which is driving it. So it seems to me that, well, this, and I found that thoughts, you know, this energy is extremely sensitive to thought. It shapes around it, it takes, yeah, it gathers around it. So it seems to me that all these metaphors used in spiritual teachings really point to the principle that thought shapes energy and disturbs its path. And this being you refer to today, I think I see it as the free flow of energy according to God's will. And this free flow of energy is actually this bliss, this feeling of bliss, because if the energy flows naturally, there's this bliss feeling. So the peace of mind, yeah, the contentment of it, or more even. So I think I don't totally agree with you when you say opening up means that it can go again. Opening up means the removal of obstacles of this energy. So if you remove the obstacles, they're for always removed. They don't come back. So that is my take on it. So this being is actually allowing this energy to flow freely.
Yes, that is well said. And you see, the important point, Jaren, is that it is not purely the thoughts, it is the thinking which create the obstacles. The thinking in the duration of time, and the
Yeah,
thinking which is based on a lot of emotions, which create impressions, which create blocks in the flow of the energy. The
yeah,
thoughts can arise, the thoughts come from outside, but when the thought is taken delivery of, and one gets involved in the thought and extends the thought in the duration of time, then the energy which was free flowing is now being forced into certain trajectories. And
yeah,
the body, the subtle body, that is, after all, is the energy body. The pranamaya kosha, the energy body. And what starts happening with life, with conditioning in school, college, work, so on, family, is all these preconceived notions and ideas of how things should be and should not be, and how people should be and should not be. And me and my story of whatever happened to me in life, which I'm now identified with, all these block the flow of the energy, the free flow of the energy in the body. And therefore, a teaching comes along which starts untying these knots, which starts unblocking these blocks by showing you, hey, look here, this is how it is. This is actually how things are. This is the play of consciousness. And the understanding starts transforming. One's hard held beliefs, dogmas, concepts, you look at them and you realize, my God, I used to finger point all the time. I used to blame everyone all the time. Now look at it. That
yeah,
is the dissolving of the blocks, which is enabling the being, the free flow of the energy. And that is exactly what you have said so appropriately. And that bliss which you speak about is the bliss of being, not becoming and not being. It is actually the human being, the pure being, the pure energy, the pure Shakti, which is right here, right now, in its pristine purity.
yeah,
In its pristine purity, blessing everything
and flowing freely.
that comes within consciousness.
Yeah, I also recognize that the philosophy is more powerful than practice like Tai Chi. But the thing is, this Tai Chi, it elevates your sensitivity, which makes you more perceptive to the philosophy, and then it so embodiment is quite important apart
Of
from,
course.
but philosophy more important.
That is
So
why
I
we have
also,
a lot of, yogic practices, Tai Chi, as you say, these are all to help open up the nadis of the body and the
yeah.
streams of the body, the subtle channels. They go hand in hand. Of course they are, by all means. Okay, that was nice. Thank you.
Okay, welcome.
Yes, good Sharan. Are you there, Gursharan? Okay, let's move on. Let's see if Harish has his.
Hello.
Oh, sorry. Are you there, Gursharan?
Yes.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go on.
Okay. Okay. Morning, Gautamji. I would just like you to throw some light on free will. Since everything is so predestined, so it's just like I assume we are like puppets in the universe. So, what is the role or importance of free will? As I saw in one of your videos, you explained free will is just up to the rope to which the goat is tied. So could you please explain it a little in more detail?
Well, Gursharan, that is basically it. You see, free will is the mechanism of functioning in daily living. We have to exercise our free will, you see, our apparent free will. We have to decide, do I do this or do I do that? Do I go to the grocery store or do I go to the wine shop? You see? So, free will is the mechanism of daily living. You cannot operate without free will. But what this teaching shows you is that this precious free will of yours, which has made you feel you are in charge of your life and all that has happened in it, look at it closely, look at what it is based on, and you will find that it is based on two factors and only two factors that have never been in your control. One, your genetics, and two, your conditioning. You have no control over the parents you were born to. You have no control over the conditioning you received as a child, the way your parents treated you, the school you went to, the religion you were born into, the economic strata you were born into, the geographical location you were born into, all which shaped your conditioning. And whatever you decide to do at any point in time is based on these two factors over which you do not have any control. So, is it really your free will? And then you realize that it is not. My so called free will is God's will because God shaped those two factors. And then you realize if my free will is God's will, so too for the others. So too for the others. And that is the beginning of the understanding of free will. You see? So, does one have free will? Of course. Without that, you cannot operate. What is the value of that free will? That you will have to decide.
Just talking about the conditioning and the other environmental conditions. At times we have like two people living in the same environment, having same type of upbringing, same parents, same everything, yet their behaviors are different from each other.
Exactly, because they had no free will. You just answered this very point.
Okay.
Okay. You see, I'm working on a book on Ganesha. Someone has written it. It's so fascinating. The law of gravity is so subtle that, and Ganesha is the lord of gravity. It is so refined that it allows the human being to sit and stand on this planet, but allows a bird the freedom to fly to a certain level. Now, the human being forgets that it is sitting and standing thanks to the law of gravity. And it says, are you telling me I don't have the free will to stand up? Of course I do. Are you telling me I don't have the free will to sit down? Of course I do. What would happen if there was no law of gravity? Pray tell me this. That is how precious your free will is. What is that force, that most intricate of forces that allows the birds to fly, and yet they cannot fly off to Mars or to Venus, and allows the human being to be on this planet? We've forgotten that. We've ignored that. Why? I have free will. All right. Okay. Yes, Harish, have you sorted out your speaker?
Yes, Gautamji. Yes, there was a Bluetooth issue. Am I audible now? Is it
Yes.
clear? Okay. Gautamji, I wanted to, because this thing had just come up, incident had come up to me last week. So I thought I would just, ask you a question relevant to that. My question is relevant to the interference of karmic journey for someone else who has just, come up to you, and you have certain wisdom and information that you may or you may not impart to that person that can help that person in the personal or the professional journey. But if I impart this information, am I not tampering with the karmic journey of that person? So I wanted to get some information on that.
It may be the karmic journey of that person to have it tampered with, you see. The point is not that, Harish. The point is you have to do precisely that which you think and feel you should do. So if the feeling arises that, based on my experience, perhaps I have something to offer. Who knows? Maybe I do, which might be of value to this person. If that feeling arises, that has to be honored. But knowing that the results are not in my control. You see, what we do is we try to force our views and based on our experience upon other people. No, do it this way, don't do it that way. That
Right.
that forcing my view on the other means I have not accepted this whole concept of everything being destined and the concept of free will. So,
Okay.
if the feeling arises that I could perhaps be of help to this person, that is honored, knowing that that person has their own destiny. Whether or not they follow your advice is their destiny. So you will not go on repeating yourself and forcing your point of view that no, this is the right way, what you are doing is wrong. Because now you are not attached to the outcome. You have the full knowing that whatever is destined to happen will happen. Now, my nature, for example, is one where I don't give advice unless it is asked for. My nature is like that. Everyone's nature does not have to be like that. Your nature could be, no, I have my experience in these matters and I would love to share them. There's not one right and one wrong. But how attached are you to that sharing? You see, that is where the problem comes in. Because then you feel offended. Oh my God, I shared this and this person didn't listen to me. How dare he? He wasted my time. That is the sense of doership. So if it is a free sharing, then it's beautiful. As simple as that. All right?
Sure. Okay, understood. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Yes, Purnu.
Good morning, Gautamji.
Good morning.
Yes, so my question is, how do change of impressions and surroundings alter our interests and thinking patterns?
I can't see you, but you'll have to repeat that, Purnu.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
My camera is turned on. I do not know what the issue here is.
Okay, go
Yes.
on.
So my question. So my question is, how do change of impressions and surroundings alter our thinking patterns and interests?
They certainly do, because they create fresh conditioning.
It so happened that without my doership, I was brought to this teaching by various factors when I was on the other extreme. And now, when I want to pursue this path and walk here, it seems like the outer situations are extremely non-conducive. How to go?
You already have your answer. As Nisargadatta Maharaj would say, consciousness has pulled you by the ear and dragged you to the teaching. That applies for everyone who is here today. They may think that they did something to find it. If it was not the will of consciousness, it would not have happened.
So, like in this current situation, I need to have faith in that consciousness that it will keep me on the path.
Yes, because the faith is knowing that if God brought me here to this point, why don't I trust that He will take me further? You yourself said, I didn't do anything. I got dragged to this path. I got onto this path without my doing. Now the ego has stepped in and wants to do something to walk faster on the path. You are yourself not responsible for placing yourself on the path. Somehow the teaching came to you through a series of events. That process has to be trusted. And you may still do what you think you should do to hasten the process, but the frustration will not arise if you know that whether or not the process is hastened is God's will.
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. Like, with the same resources, I could meditate, I could read, but now I cannot do anything. And it does.
Sorry, I think I lost you there for a bit, but it does make a lot of sense. All right. We had someone who was having trouble with their mic initially, so if their mic is sorted out, maybe we can take that as the. We do have
Feel
about.
like maybe I'm regressing or.
So now I am going to ask Sumi. Sumi, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, is that Sumi?
Yes, it is Sumi.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes.
Hello, namaste. I've been listening to you for several weeks now, and I got introduced to you through listening to Ramesh Balsekar's video. I have known this teaching for now several years, I would say 7-8 years. I've read Nisargadatta Maharaj's book and Ramesh Balsekar's book and listened to a lot of other teachers, and I really resonate with this teaching and it helps me a lot. What I see is that even after I've been introduced to this teaching and I resonate completely with this teaching, I cannot seem to live the teaching. I mean, I totally get Ramesh's. I love this. It gives me so much peace when I hear Ramesh's video, and it's like it's ongoing. That is my. It seems like that is my entertainment. Anytime I have free time, I turn on the YouTube and listen to him, and it gives me so much peace. I understand his "Thy will be done." I'm not the doer, predetermined. All these things are very close to my heart. But I also realized that there is a tremendous amount of pain body in me, which there is when there is some trigger. There are words that comes out from my spouse or my children or any of my children. I have 3 children, adults. The pain body takes over, and there is a tremendous amount of altercation happening. And when that is happening at the moment, at that present moment, when that's happening, I seem to lose total control. I give into that body, and it just goes on and on and on. And when it stops, I'm like, oh my gosh, all the teaching that I'm resonating with has not affected at all in this situation. And I cannot seem to bring that awareness. The awareness does not come. I'm sorry, I shouldn't say I cannot, because I'm not in charge. I'm not the doer. The awareness doesn't arise that this pain body is happening, and it doesn't stop me. I just flow into it. And I don't know how to help myself with that, or how will I be aware of this? I know I'm trying to be the doer, but there has to be some way of me coming to a recognition that the pain body is controlling me right now. I don't know whether I'm clear with my questions.
No, you're very clear, because there are many on the path who go through what you're going through. But you see, tell me, Sumi, the main thing is, even after it has happened, let's say after the altercation has happened, after that, what happens? Do you accept that the person you had the altercation with, even if it's a family member, do you accept that they are not the doers of their action? And do you see it in the light of the teaching after the event, or does that also not happen? Or do you still blame them?
No, I absolutely understand that he or she is not the doer of this action.
So,
however,
yes.
However, I tell myself, I don't like that consciousness that's happening in him or her. I don't like that consciousness saying that to this consciousness. I'm like, I don't like that consciousness appearing in that person and telling me to my consciousness that this is happening. And I'm like, I know you're not the doer, but then I walk away, and then I come and switch on Ramesh Balsekar or your video. Like, oh my gosh, they need to tell me, I need to listen. Why am I not embodying this?
It is not the consciousness appearing in the person, it is the person appearing within the consciousness. The point is that even if there's an intellectual understanding of this teaching, what will happen is, after an altercation, regret may arise that, my God, despite doing all this altercation happened. And that regret can lead to an apology. You see? Now, if that apology is not happening, or any holding back is happening, that means the teaching has not had much of an impact. But if after the incident, in light of the teaching, you say, my God, I could just see, now I can see that nobody is the doer. That includes myself for my own reactions, because after all, they are based on years and years of conditioning. And you see the event after it has happened in the light of the teaching, you'll be surprised. Compassion may arise for the other, for yourself. That compassion could lead to an apology. You could say, hey, look here, I don't know what happened, because I do understand now where you're coming from, and I respect and accept it. But I could not help getting into that altercation. That is still the teaching in operation, because don't forget, it has to fight years and years of innate conditioning right from childhood. Fight in the sense, it is fresh conditioning, so it has to transform the prior conditioning. Sometimes that can be a process. Now, you see, you might say that I listen to Ramesh's videos and I don't agree with him. That means the concepts have been rejected. No, but part of you has accepted them, right? The teaching has already been accepted by you. The whole point is you want to see it playing out in your relationships in daily living, and you don't see that happening because you're getting caught into the action and reaction loop time and again. This does not mean that the teaching doesn't have an impact. It means that the teaching has not sunk deeper and deeper into the heart. And that can only happen. So when you say that I get into these altercations, you're talking on behalf of most of the seekers, because these altercations, the Rinanubandhan, the bondage of relationships, is based from our early years. It takes time generally. But the quality changes because what you were holding on to in the altercation, after the altercation, you drop it. And if you are not dropping that, that means there's still this blame and this not accepting that someone is not the doer of their actions. That means you have not accepted the teaching to that degree, which is also God's will. So eventually, all that can happen is the witnessing of the play of events. The witnessing of the play of events and seeing it in light of the teaching.
Yes. I mean, it all sometimes also seems like while it's happening, I'm witnessing it. I'm witnessing what's happening. But at the same time, I still am going on with that altercation.
Yes.
It brings a lot of after the fact, and then all of a sudden it just stops. And then I'm realizing, oh my gosh, I fell into it again. I could not stop myself.
Yeah.
And
So
I stand up and walk away.
So falling into it again happened.
Yes. Yes.
Falling
But
in,
thank you so much. Yes. Thank you.
you see, the intent is already half the battle won. Because it has resonated within. Ramesh's teachings have resonated within.
Yes.
Gratitude should arise just for that. Because part of you already knows it. Everything is God's will. Nobody does anything.
Yes, it truly is in my heart.
Yes.
It's God's will.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I think we will stop here. Couple of things to announce before we sit in silence for a few minutes. One is that perhaps a Spanish talk is being organized with Spanish translations. So if anyone of you know people in Spain or Mexico, Colombia, and so on, the notice will be put up on the website or mentioned somewhere. So that would be coming up. The other is that we are happy that we have some volunteers who are now working on various assignments, and we still need more help. So if you look at the contact page on the website, it mentions what specific kind of assistance we are looking for. It is during this lockdown of 3 or 4 months that more and more people have come to the teaching, and to keep up with a lot of work is a bit challenging. So if you do have the inclination and the commitment to help in any way which you feel supports those points which are mentioned on the contact page, then by all means do write into the website. And the third point, I can't remember. It reminds me of Nisargadatta Maharaj's translator Mular Patan. I used to visit him on weekend afternoons and have tea with him. By that time, he was 90 or 91. And one day he told me that Maharaj told him, let's go for a walk in the neighborhood. So they both went down. Maharaj was quite old then. And so, in people who visited Bombay, Mumbai, you have these hawkers on the road selling various things like clothes and toys. And so there was one hawker who was selling cheap plastic combs to comb the hair with. So spontaneously, Maharaj got down on his haunches because it was laid out on the footpath, over a bed sheet, and various combs were placed there by the hawker. And he bent down and he picked up one comb. And he turned to Mular Patan, who was standing, and he said, I really like this, in Marathi. And Mular Patan looked at Maharaj and said, what are you doing? You realize you hardly have any hair left? And so Maharaj was blank for a second. And then he looked up at Mular Patan and said, mind has gone. So I guess you could say forgetting is a good sign. Because if you forget the mundane, forget the accusations, the blame game, the hate and the malice, and the jealousy and the envy, and the pride and the arrogance, what is then remembered, remembered, is one's sense of being. I'll just change the view so I can see all of you. Bless those who make you angry. They are doing you a very big favor. There is something I will share. It has just come up on compassion. The memory just came up. Someone I consider one of my mentors in Kashmir. So I decided to give him a fair sum of money. I thought he could use it. And I put it in an envelope and gave it to him, which he refused to take. He runs a shop which sells items like shawls, winter caps, coats, mainly for tourists, not really for the locals. And I refused to take the envelope back. He refused to take it. And I left it there at the counter and I exited the shop. And the next day he said, you come in the morning to the shop with your car. And so I went there. And then he started emptying out all his shelves into big bags, huge bags. But he was taking all the clothes of perhaps someone from the age of 3 to 9 or 10 without looking at the price tags, shelf after shelf of gloves, winter caps, jackets, shoes, until half his shop was emptied. In a frenzy, you could say. It was all loaded onto the car. And then he told the driver to drive pretty far away. It was about, I think, a half an hour to 40-minute drive. And the driver, who I've known for years, he looked at me hesitantly. He said, sir, are you sure you want to go into that locality? It's not safe. And this man who, let's call him Baba, who was taking me there, he said, don't be ridiculous. We are going. I said, all right, this is what has to happen. So the driver said, okay. And then we entered what looked like a battered, worn out building which had no walls. It had only the floor slabs, you see. Maybe a 3-story building. And on each slab, in each room, which one could see, like a naked room, one could see this building from the ground. There were children studying. There were children studying. There was a teacher teaching the children in each room. There must have been 6, 7 such rooms. And as soon as they saw us get out of the car, they obviously recognized him. The teachers recognized the man. The children perhaps recognized him. They all came running down. And he told them all to stand in one long line. I don't recall how long it was. There must have been at least 100 children and teachers there. And then we unloaded all these clothes for these kids. And one by one, they came with such a big smile on their face. And he made us give the clothes to the children. He stood at the back. No measure of the worth of the items in his shop. No care for the world. No taking of the money passed on to those who needed winter clothes, winter socks, teachers, children. There is no higher understanding than that. Perhaps one time I'll tell you all about his relationship with the birds. Compassion. Be compassionate to one another. We are all in this together. We are all suffering the polarities of life and living, facing challenges in our own unique ways. The ones we don't like are facing their own challenges. And all our destination is the same. We are all going to where we came from. Is anyone going any place different? Do tell me.